Hey everybody, what's good? What's going on? I want to welcome you all to another episode of En La Mesa. I'm your host, Carlos, and today I have a special guest with me. We're going to be speaking about her life and her experiences, and she'll speak and give us her background and tell us about things that she's doing, and as well as maybe offer some of her advice in this podcast. So today we have with us Kay. Uh,
Hi,
I want to welcome you. It's been a long time, but welcome, welcome, welcome. I appreciate you reaching out and wanting to be part of this uh, podcast
definitely.
episode, and I thank you so much. So before we start, it's been a while, right? I know we haven't spoken in a long time, but I'm glad you reached out, like I said, and I'm looking forward to this episode and having you, kind of connect and talk about yourself. So let's start. Let's start with an introduction, right? Let's tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your background, where you're from, and where you grew up, your and where you live now, the areas of your life where you're at, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. So, born in Brooklyn, um, lived there most of my life, and then moved to Long Island briefly, and then back to Brooklyn. And then at around 18 years old, I decided that I would move to Long Island on my own. So I did that. And now I live in Long Island, Massapequa. Um, a lot different than Brooklyn and very
That's
different,
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
nice neighborhood. So
can
that's
relate.
where I'm at
No
now.
subways. I mean, we have the LIRR, but there's no walking to the bodega, right?
Nope.
Walking to where you need to walk, you gotta take a car. Or if you
Mm-hmm.
do live close to the street, it's too noisy or too close to the stores. But yeah,
Yeah.
Long Island is you gotta have a car to be in transportation. But
Mm-hmm. When I
that,
first moved here, I did not have a car, so I walked everywhere. And
oh,
I took the
geez.
bus and um yeah, I just took the bus, walked everywhere. I was probably in the best shape of my life because I walked everywhere.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Cool. So, what you've been up to, like, obviously, you, based on our conversations, I know you're teaching, and you want to get into a little bit of that, of how you became a teacher, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe that journey to becoming a teacher, and how that your ups and downs, the goods and bads that you had, and kind of how you decided to become a teacher.
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to do some kind of public service when I was really young because I grew up in poverty and I wanted to make a difference in the communities that I lived in. So I think it was about third grade. I had a science project due, and my mother dropped the ball, didn't get me the materials. We couldn't afford it. I was embarrassed, so I brought in like a makeshift, whatever I had around the house for the science fair. And my third grade teacher, I'll never forget her, Mrs. Scala, she saw and kind of knew that there was issues at home and kept me during recess, and we rebuilt my entire science fair project
Okay.
so I wouldn't be embarrassed. And I'd never forget that. And from that day, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. So I didn't really finish high school. I dropped out in about 10th grade. I was kind of forced to drop out. Um, Went to a bad high school, violence, gun violence. So it wasn't really a safe place for me. So I got my GED and I started working right away. I didn't know how to apply to college. I didn't know, I was the first generation person to go to college in my family,
Yeah.
and I didn't know how to. So I just worked, worked, worked. I kept switching jobs to make more money. I worked 3 jobs at a time. I traveled. I went from one job to another job, working overnight, um, doing some just whatever job I could find, I did. And then I landed a teacher assistant position at a career in tech ed high school, and I fell in love with it. but the pay wasn't too good. So I always worked a second or a third job. But I had great benefits and I was paying into my retirement early at the
Okay.
age of like 20.
Oh, wow.
So I knew that in the long term, it would be worth it. But at that moment, the pay was horrible.
No.
And then I was like, you know what? I got to figure out how to go to college. So I tried to apply for financial aid. And believe it or not, even though I was dirt poor, they didn't approve me for financial aid because they said I made too much money, even though I made nothing.
Yeah.
So I didn't get any financial aid. I think it was like $350 for books.
Wow.
So I applied to the University of Phoenix online because they were the only ones that were helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know anything else. I was just checking out colleges, and whoever helped me at the office is how I chose. So I did my associates full-time online while working 2 jobs. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And I did elementary education. So I was like, all right, that's good, but I don't know if I want to do that. So right after that, I looked into other colleges. I had some mentors at work, and I found SUNY Old Westbury, which was more of an affordable, good school that focused on an education program. And I worked and went to school at night. It took me a long time, very long time. I was probably like the oldest in my class, but I did my bachelor's and my master's back to back and then got certified. So I always say people who work go to college. And if you have kids at the same time, I don't know how people do it with kids at the same time. It's so hard.
Sometimes it's willpower.
It's like, I don't even know. I don't remember sleeping. And somehow I was on the dean's list for most of my college. I have no idea how.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's how I finally, got my education.
Yeah.
But it took a while to find like a permanent position, especially on Long Island.
Yeah. I think I can relate, especially when we talk about sometimes when we grow up, my dad was the only provider in my family. So when you talk about not having the means to kind of get things, and I also went to one of the worst high schools in Brooklyn, right, out in Williamsburg. So having to, but what I am grateful for, even through that, is I had great teachers, people like you said that kind of were kind of like your guardian angel at school to kind of help you, get you to where you, even though it was tough. But it's great. Great to hear that you actually were able to pull it off and get your degrees, and like you said, probably being the hardest part of getting your degree, because I remember doing the online schooling too while I had the 2 boys at the time, and I worked, and then you're sitting at your dining table like 2 a.m. trying to do a math problem and trying to get through it. So it's kind of very relatable. So inspiring to hear that you actually were able to pull it off and make it happen, which is awesome. Do you have any like parts in your timeline and your life where something clicked, right? That someone was outside of, figuring out you needed to get to school, but was there someone that actually was pivotal in terms of helping you kind of move yourself, or was it a self-motivation thing? Like I want to better my life, because, saying that you worked at a very young age and was already investing into your retirement, not many people at our age at that time when we were in our 20s know, because we're blowing it on, what's the latest bag, or what's the latest pair of sneakers you need to buy, or, I'm going to go out drinking with my friends and blow my whole paycheck out because that's what's in right now. So,
yeah. I didn't have any role models. I looked at my parents as what not to do and what not to be.
Okay.
And that's what pushed me.
Okay.
And I was the oldest of my siblings, and I wanted to set a good example. And thankfully, the 2 of them both got their degrees, their master's degrees, and they're both doing professional jobs and doing great. And I wanted to try to lead them because we had no role models. We had nobody.
Right.
We
I
had
hear you.
nothing, so, nobody even checking our homework. That was
Right.
me. I had to check their homework in school and make sure they went, and, you know, all the other stuff that goes with going to school and traveling to school. Like, Long Island kids don't know how good they have it with a school bus. Getting to school is so hard when you're in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And my sisters also lived in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which was a really tough area,
Right. Yeah.
and they had to make it through high school. So, I just kept pushing because I wanted them to see what to do and how to do it.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, sometimes we are our own like sponsor, right? Or our own
Hmm.
motivational speaker. We look at ourselves in the mirror and you're like, it becomes very unfortunate that we have to kind of have, that to motivate us when, sometimes we do have a community that's not really present at the time. But do you still keep in contact? Have you ever, oh, is your teacher still alive? The one that actually reads that
I
project with
don't
you?
know. And it's funny because I thought about, I've tried to find her on Facebook,
Right.
and I never was successful. But what's funny is that during the time, she started dating our school custodian,
Oh, wow.
and they fell in love. And I knew that they were getting married,
Right, right.
and all the kids were like so excited. And so I don't know I can't remember what his last name is, but his first name was Joe.
Okay.
And I don't know how I remember this, but it was just like they were so cute. And so I'm assuming she might have taken his last name, so it's harder to find her.
Okay. All right. Oh, wow. That's yeah. Sometimes Facebook is usually like I actually just started following my fourth grade teacher.
Wow.
So she's there, and she was one of the teachers that I don't think liked me, but I think as I'm older now, she probably has seen where I'm at
And
right
did
now in
she
my career.
remember you?
Oh yeah, yeah. She actually
Wow.
posted photos of us in group class photos for fourth grade. So definitely wasn't one of her favorites, but I think I was. I mean, I think she really saw.
Usually the kids who are not the quote unquote favorites are.
Well, I was the kid that never sat still. I was the hyperactive kid. I always got in trouble for not doing things the right way. I
Those are
wasn't
my favorite kids.
I wasn't the bad kid, but I wasn't also the innocent kid. But
Hmm.
somehow a letter home always got home to my parents from her. So it was but yeah, I mean, it's definitely plus, and especially when you have that at school, right? Because it makes you want to go to school. When you
Exactly.
have some positive, uh,
Hmm.
reinforcements, or at least some positive uh, role models that you can actually relate to, like you said, give you that the opportunity to want to become a teacher. So I want to ask you, what was the hardest part when you were going to school? Like, if you had to sit now and think about, man, I don't know how I made it to this. What was the hardest time period for you during that studies?
Bad relationships
Oh,
with friends
okay.
and with boyfriends. Trying to stay motivated and having a relationship was hard.
Mm.
I dated somebody who was a severe alcoholic. Um, really bad times with him, and it broke it very hard taking care of him at the same time as going to school. And I put my all into making sure he was okay. I mean, hiding his keys at night. If
Wow.
he found his keys, I would have to go chase him in the middle of the night and then still get up for work the next day. Um, Making sure that he stayed sober, um, educating myself on what to do, going to Al Anon to make sure I knew how to support him appropriately, working with his family, taking him to rehab, picking him up from rehab. Um, you name it, I did it. And it was the most hardest time. And I had like a mental breakdown.
Yeah. I mean, I can uh, I can see how that could be kind of difficult, especially when you're trying to focus on you, right? And you feel like you have to keep an eye, pretty much like a babysit, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a very traumatic lifestyle to live in with someone who's,
Oh yeah.
dependent on either a vice or some sort of uh, substance
Mm-hmm.
to be dependent on it. But I'm sorry you went through that. But again, just glad that you were able to pull it off and get to where you're at. Uh, and now as a teacher, and as where you are right now, what are the things that are like major wins for you, like things that like motivate you and make you get up from bed every day to say, I love what I'm doing right now. What is it that kind of I know your teacher was your focal point to wanting you to become a teacher and to help others and to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
you know kids who are less fortunate or those who may not have someone to kind of push them and motivate them. What is it that kind of keeps you going like every day, especially being an educator for kids nowadays, because it's a tough time that we're in, especially when you're educating kids
Mm-hmm.
of
And
this era.
I'm teaching U.S. history, which is
Oh wow, that's everybody's favorite.
really
Not,
hard at this
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Um, and I wasn't interested in social studies when I was in school.
right.
I thought it was boring. So I try to make it as fun and relevant and have open discussions with the kids and try to relate it to like current events. And the best part of my day is when kids start asking questions to find out more about our country's history. And that's what motivates me, is like when they want to know more, when they get the information, when they have like an aha moment and they're like, so, that really happened, and oh my God, and um I can't believe like our country used to be like this. And when they're having open discussions, it's the best part of my day. It's like that's what keeps me going. Also, like when I see success stories from kids who were failing, and then them finding a way to overcome that, or me figuring out a way to get them motivated, that pushes me. The admin or like the actual day-to-day function of the school is not for me. Which is why like I'm struggling right now with staying as a typical teacher or getting into something where I'm helping the community or kids in a different way. Because it's been 17 years that I've been doing this, and I'm like, I need a change because it's not the way it used to be anymore. Teachers are getting, I'm in so many teacher groups on Facebook that have hundreds of thousands of people, and they're all in the same boat. They're just getting mistreated by the organization, the board, the admin, it's not good. And all we're trying to do is just help our kids.
Yeah.
And it seems that like we can't to the fullest extent because we're getting micromanaged and we're getting, told to do a million and one things when we really just want to focus on the kids.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of get it. I mean, I seen it, with my own three, especially when they started pushing Common Core, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like takes away from, makes me almost feel like everything that I learned was a lie, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you learning this new math, and then you're kind of getting the equation and the answer right, and then the teacher's like, no, it's still wrong. I'm like, what do you mean it's
Yeah,
wrong? It's the right answer. At the end of the day, the answer is still the
exactly.
same, but because I'm not formulating it or processing it the way you're supposed to, or the way that they're telling you to do it, right? That you have to teach your kids. I think it's somewhat a
Yeah,
disservice sometimes to even the parents, because then it causes that tension at home where now
exactly.
I'm not,
And the parents
you
can't help the way that they want to help.
right,
And kids are fortunate enough to have a parent that wants to help them with their
right,
homework. I didn't have that.
right.
So if a parent's trying to help, but they're struggling because it's nonsense that's just added into the curriculum, it's just not fair. It doesn't work.
Yeah. So I don't know how teaching works more in the corporate world, because I've been in the corporate world for all my career. But in the teaching world, do you face the same type of repercussions like performance reviews? Do you sit down with your principal or your whoever the head of the admin school is and says, "Oh, I've gotten so many complaints from parents or
Mm-hmm.
students are failing in your class, and what's going on. If we can't get turnaround, we're going to have to switch you into something else." So a lot of teachers go through a lot of those kind of uh, being put under the spotlight based
Well,
on
you
what they're
get
trying to do.
like the average of 4 observations per year, and they're based on something called Danielson, and you have to get like either developing or effective, highly effective, or ineffective. If you're ineffective, they put a team together to try to help you to do better. If you're getting a lot of parent complaints or having a lot of behavior problems, they'll come into the classroom, see what's going on. Um, Usually they blame the teacher. Sometimes, it is the teacher who doesn't have classroom management or skills on how to deal with behavior. But sometimes you just get unfortunate with not the best group of kids mixed together, like they shouldn't be together. Um, Teaching middle school was a lot harder for me than 11th and 12th grade. I love 11th and 12th grade. I have zero behavior problems right now, which I'm so fortunate, but middle school is like another story. That is like wild. That is, I do not like it. It is complicated. They're going through changes. They're trying to find themselves.
Yeah,
They're
finals.
being disrespectful to their parents. They're being disrespectful to the teachers. So, and there's a lot of blame on teachers now.
Yeah.
Like when I was in school, it was like if you got a phone call home or a note, your parent usually asked you, "What did you do wrong?"
Right.
Now it's, "What did the teacher do wrong?"
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that because I know for once, me being like I said, when I used to get those letter homes, and I try to hide it or forge my mom or dad's signature,
Mm-hmm.
and then if they found it, or if it was open school night, and the teacher would be like, "Oh, did you get the letter I sent home?" And they're like, "Oh, but you signed it." Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you'd have to answer. Yeah, it'd be like, I'm not getting a letter home because the teacher decided to write something that you weren't listening. So obviously you weren't doing something in the class. So it'd be more like you're being held to be responsible, and versus
It's
like,
so crazy. I keep thinking, I'm like, they used to send notes home and they trusted the kid to deliver the note to the parent.
oh, believe
Like,
me, I try to hide
and
it
I
or
remember,
sign
like,
it.
yeah, like I don't know, that I would never do. Obviously, we can't do that nowadays. The kids would just rip it up and throw it out. Like, they
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
care.
Well, that's the power of email. So that's how I know that my kids are
Mm-hmm.
not doing what they're supposed to. So the teacher sends an email, gives you that phone call,
Mm-hmm.
or you have the Google Classroom, and
Yeah.
or the school portal where you have their grades and you're looking at the work that they're not doing. So it becomes a bit. So there's no way that they can hide it. So I always tell my kids, if you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, believe me, I'm gonna find out some way, or somehow the teacher's gonna get in contact with me. So to definitely know. Is there anything you're doing right now from a teaching perspective that's exciting, or is there anything exciting happening in your role as a teacher within your school? I know you're teaching U.S. history. Is there anything that the kids kind of challenge you, or are you feeling like because there's so much of the news and social media,
Mm.
especially with the times right now, it's like you can't run away from everything that's going on in the Middle East. Are
Mm-hmm.
the kids starting to, is that trying to kind of superseding your lesson plans versus depending on where you are from a lesson perspective, right? Is there anything interesting that's kind of grabbing your students to have dialogue and conversation about?
Well, right now, I mean, what's going on in the Middle East, they ask questions or they bring up their opinion and they're highly influenced by their friends. So my goal is usually always to tell them how to do their own research.
Cool.
As a teacher, you cannot provide your own political opinion. You're not supposed to. You're not supposed to sway kids in either direction. You're
Right.
supposed to be neutral, teach them the facts, provide them with both sides, and let them come to a decision. There are teachers that don't follow that, but that is what you're supposed to do as an oath, is not to provide your own personal political beliefs in the classroom.
Yeah.
So I never do that. Like if a kid asks me, "Who did you vote for?" or "What's your political party?" I would never answer that question. So I provide them the facts on everything. And I give them the information and let them decide. So they've been asking questions about like, Palestine and Israel, but it hasn't interrupted my class because right now the topic that we're doing in school is about slavery. So that's a very difficult topic because it's highly sensitive and you have to deliver it in a way that is appropriate, factual, and be considerate of kids' feelings. So right now they are obsessed with learning about that. They find it so interesting. They want to know everything about it. So right now that's like, I'm happy because they're so intrigued and surprised at what was going on that we're having really great, deep discussions about it. So that's like what's amazing to me right now.
Okay.
And they're also becoming obsessed with the treatment of Native Americans in this country. So those are the two things that they're like really diving into right now. And we talk about like almost every day. So I'm happy to see that because they want to learn more. So sometimes you're limited because you have to move on in the curriculum. You can't stay stuck on something. But if if they want to talk about it, I will find time to talk about it,
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. Now, in regards to what you do, do you have, I'm not sure, a lot of the schools in Long Island have this, like where you have a student teacher that kind of tags along with you. Do you guys do that? Because you teach in the city, right? So do you have like student teachers that are maybe a bachelor's degree, just getting out of college, maybe going for their master's, maybe their certificate, kind of tag along in your class for like a summer or a semester to kind of get that experience and kind of what's that like having like someone like that's fresh out of college where you've been in it for a bit? Are there some challenges in that? Do you get some pushback or do you get like, oh, I wouldn't teach that way? Or do you get it sometimes? Do you get any kind of conflicted conversations? Or do they like look at you and be like, oh, I want to be just like you from a professional perspective?
So I've worked in schools where there's been student teachers, not necessarily in my room.
Right.
But I've seen them in other classrooms and they're really like focused because in college they teach you the facts. They don't teach you how to be a teacher. Like you have to really just do it and practice and just wing it when you jump right in. So right now I'm at a charter school in Queens and we don't get student teachers at our school. Most student teachers don't want to go to a charter school. They want to go to a public school. So that's usually like where they go. I have a co-teacher though. So I have an inclusion class where we have students with IEPs and then, mainstream students. And so the co-teacher is a special ed teacher and we work together.
Okay.
So that's what I have right now. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Are charter school teachers under the same umbrella as public school teachers where they're under the same union or it's totally separate? Like if you're a charter, you're more like a private entity. There's a whole different set of rules. There's a whole different set of ways to maneuver through that. Maybe a lot more chain of command and kind of paperwork versus public school is, I guess the union and which oversees, you and protects you and handles all of that potential disciplining or complaints.
Yeah. So charter schools suck. We don't get the same benefits as the DOE or Long Island schools. The Long Island school unions are strong. Like they got really great unions. And I was in a really great union as a teacher assistant and as a teacher. But charter schools usually do not offer union benefits. They don't have a union. They don't offer tenure. I'm lucky that my charter school is a rare one that actually has a union.
Okay.
Which is unheard of. So it is good that we have that. It's not that strong as like the CSEA or the Federal Teachers Union, but it's something. You're an at-will employee when you work at a charter school.
Oh, wow.
So you can be fired one day. There's no you can really, it's at will. So I could leave whenever I wanted and they could fire me whenever they want.
So it's like a corporate job, pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're pretty much signing a contract that
Yeah.
says, if we decide to cut you, we're going to cut
Yeah.
you. There's no probation. There's no
Nope.
disciplinary, if there's anything, right? It
And
could
as
be
a
based because of
teacher,
there's not enough school.
that it's a bad thing. Like it's not good to be in that
And
situation,
now is
which is
that based on
why,
based on enrollment? Like if depending on how many kids you get to sign up to that school, or is it the charter schools based on vouchers? Like I believe that the city does that kind of voucher program or you have
yeah.
to take a test or to kind of get into a certain school.
So it's kind of like a raffle. Like, so first, certain charters where it's like a raffle. They'll pick kids based on who entered and offer them enrollment. My charter school, they have people sign up. If they don't have enough people signing up, teachers will lose their job.
Wow.
So you're really at like the mercy of student enrollment. I mean, my other school, the career and tech ed, was the same thing. There were teachers that were full time, and if they didn't get enough enrollment for their class, they would go to part time and lose half their salary. So, I mean, husbands and wives and people paying mortgages and having kids, you go from full salary to half your salary is like, I
Wow.
mean,
It's crazy. Yeah,
that's like the craziest thing.
that's real world. That's kind of like what you live sometimes in the real world. Like, it just happens, right? Downsizing, you lose your job, there you go. You went from having two good salaries to now having one person kind of carrying the home for a little bit. And it's, especially out here in Long Island, right, where everything's so expensive.
Mm.
You cannot not have a car, or you can't, right, to get places unless
Yeah.
you live close to the main roads. And how the kids get to school, how you pick up your kids if they're not, called sick, or if you need to get a doctor's appointment, you got to find a way. So yeah, I kind of understand where you're coming from. Now I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you a two-part question just to kind of
Sure.
get a feel. Question number one is, what advice would you give someone who's graduating high school, going into college, and is looking into the education career? What advice would you give them to kind of help them pave the way, or maybe things that you didn't know when you were going to school and you were learning and wanting to get into this career? What is one thing you can tell them, or advice you can give this future teacher or instructor or professor, right? In terms of what to look out for, what to be aware of, know the differences in. And then my second part question is, what would you tell the younger version of yourself that wanted to become a teacher, that what you know today, that if you could go back to the younger version of yourself, what would you tell yourself to kind of prepare you for this moment?
So my answer to this is going to be different based on 2023, because teaching back even 10 years ago was so much better. It was a better environment. People were happier. There wasn't that much stress and pressure on teachers. I would tell kids who are going into college, do not pick this job if you want it for the summers off or the breaks, or, you think it's just like a regular profession. You have to really love kids, and you have to have patience. If you have no patience, you cannot do it. If you do not love kids enough, you cannot do it. Also, they don't tell you that you are going to be doing a lot of paperwork. You are not going to be able to go to work at 7:55, leave at 3:55, and then your day is over. Your day is not over. You are up all night writing lesson plans. You're up all night grading. You have kids on your mind that are dealing with stuff in their homes, that are hungry, that are upset, that are dealing with abuse. You have to be a social worker, a psychologist, a friend, a parent, a mentor. You're not just a teacher. You're a million things to these kids. You also have to be a secretary for yourself. You have to, market yourself. You have to, there's so many things that you have to do as a teacher. It's not just deliver a lesson plan and that's it. You have to be all those things and also mentally take care of yourself at the same time. I always say you have to give your soul to this job. And if you can't do it, don't do it. And it's hard. It catches up to you. And at this point in my life, I want a better life work balance. I'm not having that because I feel like I'm working 24/7.
Oh, wow.
And
so there is no luxury, like people make it seem like, oh, the teachers get the summer off. The teachers, they get paid during the summer. They don't get to,
and
when I'm
that's
off
a myth. Teachers don't really get paid in the summer. What it is some TAs don't get paid in the summer unless you decide to break up your salary over the course of 12 months.
Okay.
So you take a pay cut during the year in order to get that check in the summer.
Oh.
So that's what they don't tell you. They don't tell you that in college. That's how it is. You do get paid regular pay for the winter break and spring break and all that. Yes, you do. So that's the benefit of that. But in the summer, you have to make sure that you either budget your own or have them take out the money and have the check ready for you for the summer.
I guess that's why you see some teachers working through the summer.
I always worked. Always. Yeah. Oh, and I still do.
The reasoning.
Yeah.
Why they would do that. Okay. Now, if you had a time machine sitting in that office of yours, and you could go in that time machine and go back to the moment you said, I'm going to join University of Phoenix, and I'm going to go to study to become a teacher, what would you tell yourself to the K of that time, who just enrolled into college and thinking about becoming a teacher?
I don't regret it. I would say it's going to be harder than you think. It's going to be harder than you think. And I don't regret it because I feel like I've helped so many kids. There are kids that still reach out to me post-graduation and thank me and send me gifts in the mail. And sometimes I get letters from kids and it makes me feel like, okay, I made a difference. So even if I made a difference of one child in the course of 17 years, that's good enough for me, but it's been so many kids that I've helped and I can be proud to say that. I don't really give myself credit in a lot of things, but in that aspect, I know that I'm a good teacher. I know that I've helped kids in more ways than one. So I can say that proudly. So I don't regret it, but I do think that I should have also explored other things. I think I would have been a great guidance counselor or a great social worker or a psychologist, because those are the types of jobs you do as a teacher and you don't realize it, Right. I should have really investigated more about other ways besides teaching that I can help kids. That's what I wish I would have done.
Okay. So you would never tell them to run for the hills. You wouldn't tell yourself to,
right now, I have my students are prepping for college right now, and I'm telling them the truth. I said, It's not what you see on the surface.
Right.
Make sure that you want to dedicate your life to the service of your community and the kids. You have to dedicate your whole self.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I mean, like I said, there are a lot of teachers out there that, like you said, a lot of parents or people don't really see your long nights, even when you're prepping for your lesson plan and how things change drastically. Where one moment you're teaching a history lesson you're teaching a math lesson, and then you got a school shooting, right? Or you got something happening at home, or you got a kid that could potentially maybe lost someone in their family, or having a mental crisis in the classroom, that you have to now become, like you said, a counselor, or try to diffuse the situation. So in that retrospect, the respect has to be given to what you guys do from an educator, because you do become like their parent, right? And sometimes they don't go to their parents, right? A lot of these kids don't talk to their parents. They feel that being comfortable with you or being able to open up to you is where they feel safe, because that's their safe place. Because like you said, sometimes their home is not the place where they want to be safe, or especially when you're dealing with middle schoolers and you're dealing with high schoolers, right? Because even in high school, I think you're going through still, it's a different time, than I remember growing up, right? I didn't have social media. I didn't have any of that stuff when I was in high school, growing up in kids and stuff. If somebody had a problem with me, we dealt with it in the schoolyard, or if somebody needed to tell you something, they would tell you at lunchtime. And, when 3 o'clock came, that's how you settled it. No one was putting your business out there. If somebody didn't like the way you look or making fun of you, they did it to your face. It was never, I'm going to post something, to bully you. I don't think I tell my kids, the form of bullying that I grew up with was not bullying that would drive me to push me. It was more like, okay, and you had your group of friends and you settled it the way you settled it. You don't, it's an extreme right now. So I can respect what you guys do
and
as educators.
There is in my school and the area, there's a lot of gang violence. You brought up like the school shootings, and right before Thanksgiving, we had an emergency lockdown. So this was the first time. I mean, I've had lockdowns before, but this was the first time it was like an emergency lockdown. So I was in my room and I hear lockdown, and we had literally just came in from a fire drill. So I thought they were doing like a practice where I've done in the past. Let's practice what would happen if you're on a fire drill and God forbid there's somebody coming in the building at the same time. Let's practice what we would do. So I thought it was practice. So all of a sudden they're like lockdown. I check my email and the principal says, this is a real lockdown, stay calm. Now that period I had a prep, so I didn't have kids in my room. I hid in my room. I shut the lights off. I did everything I was supposed to do, but that was the first time I was actually scared. In all 17 years, I was actually scared because I know that there's gun violence, and I know some kids have gotten shot nearby, and I was panicked. And it turned out that a student, now we have a bunch of schools in one building. So it's a huge building and there's different sections that have different schools. And I didn't see what happened because I'm hiding in my room, but there were some kids that were stuck and they couldn't lock down because of the fire drill, and they watched somebody get stabbed. A student stabbed another student.
Oh, wow.
Now we have metal detectors, we have school safety that are NYPD, and I don't know how this child got a weapon past the metal detectors. The kids told me that there are ways that kids bring weapons to school that they are able to hide it in a way that a metal detector does not pick it up.
Okay.
So some of my students witnessed that and were traumatized, and I had to deal with that, and it was really hard. It was hard. And this was right before Thanksgiving.
Wow, like I said, growing up in Brooklyn, in the schools you go to, I mean, I've seen it all: the stabbing in the kid's head, someone throwing an M80 at my face, the fightings in the gangs with the Latin Kings and the nietas, all of that stuff that I grew up in, all that stuff that, so I don't think anything will prepare you for any situation, right? I mean, we can only plan and that if it does happen, that we'll be ready. But when it does happen, sometimes it's the
Mhm.
adrenaline kicks in, and like you said, you're like, oh man, this is like really happening. You like that fear
Yeah.
does kind of kick in because you're like, well, are they in the school or just what's going on? It's
Yeah. And your responsibility is to take care of, if you have 20 kids in your room, your job is to make sure those 20 kids are safe.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I always have an alternate plan besides what they teach you. I'm thinking about, how would I get these kids out of this room if I hear somebody in the hallway? Or I tell my kids, if somebody ever makes it into the door,
Mhm.
makes it into our room, we don't sit here, we fight. We fight as much as we can, because we're not just going to sit here and get killed. We're going to fight. And they say run, hide, fight.
Right.
And I tell my kids all the time, be aware of the exits, which room you're in. How would you escape from that room? You know who's supposed to be here, who's not supposed to be here. If you're in the bathroom and there's a lockdown or you hear a shooter, stand on the toilet and be quiet. Like, that's what I have to tell them.
Wow, that's
Like, and you have to go into school, like, I have to teach the kids and then also worry about this every day. Like, it's a
yeah,
lot.
it's scary. It's scary, especially for kid. I mean, the first thing they're gonna do is want to call their parents, or they're gonna panic, or they're not gonna know what to do or remember.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely but it's respectable what you do, and how you kind of selfishly put, yourself in the lives of these kids to kind of teach them a different way and be better, because I think sometimes society needs people like you that kind of put that foot forward, because, a lot of kids I don't think have places they could go to, to really feel safe and be heard, and especially the generation like today, where you think
Hmm.
about what the suicide rates are for teenagers, from bullying and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I respect what teachers bring to the table, even though sometimes you do have those one or two teachers in sometimes these schools that are really just not just there to collect a check or get ready for their retirement, who've been in the
Exactly.
teaching for many years, which is, understanding, because the respect level's not there, right? You have kids also kind of not respecting teachers and thinking
Yeah.
that, I'm not your friend, I'm here to help you. And,
Hmm.
so, and sometimes those are the kids that you want to reach because you see the potential in them, right? You see that
Hmm.
you're bright, if you just put the pen to the paper, and so commend what you do. But
Thank
on
you.
another note, how does a
Hmm.
teacher, is there work-life balance for you guys as teachers? Like, do you guys get to have what's some in the corporate world call it work-life balance? Um,
Yeah.
I know you have the long lesson plans, and I know you're driving home late, and then you get home and maybe you have like a few minutes to yourself and
Hmm.
kind of get at least relaxed. But of course, the laptop comes out, the paperwork's come out, you're grading papers.
Hmm.
You know, sometimes you're looking at it like, oh my God, I can't believe they did this. No answer. I gave the answer. It's an open book, right? So,
Yep.
arguing with, talking to yourself in third person because you're like, the kids didn't do what they needed to do, and then lesson plan, and then before you know it, it's time to get ready. So, do teachers I mean, is there work life balance for you in terms of a social life outside of
Yeah.
working
Right
Monday through
now, no.
Friday?
Nope.
It's mostly teaching, and that's it. Well,
That.
your commute is long too. I mean, I think you're coming from Long Island. You have to be probably up like 4 or 5 in the
Yeah.
morning, right, to kind of get into the city
Yeah.
by
It's a
8 o'clock.
long day. And
Right.
charter schools go a lot longer than regular public schools. Long Island schools, they're 8 hours a day. It's a long day for kids. It's a long day for us. Um, by the time I get home, I also tutor one-on-one for kids around Long Island. It's not really tutoring, it's more teaching, like one-on-one to kids who are suspended or have a medical issue and they can't go to school. So I do that after school as well. So by the time you cook dinner, try to clean up. I don't even have time to clean anymore, like I used to. I used to be OCD with it, and I don't even have time
Yeah.
to do that. Like, I had to hire help every couple of weeks. So by the time I sit down to try and unwind and maybe watch a mindless show, I fall asleep.
Wow.
And I get so sad. It like really crushes me. I'm like, wow, I didn't even get to enjoy being home for 5 minutes, and that's what kills me.
Now, do you, outside of teaching, you say you tutor, do you do tutoring out of choice, or is something that you want to do? Is this something that you see, maybe I'm doing this temporarily as you look at your career as a teacher, right? I know you mentioned that you're thinking about maybe transitioning out of being a
Hmm.
teacher and maybe looking at something more corporate or maybe
Yes.
social working or doing something. Is this just temporary till you find that new career path and find that new path to what you want to do that's not teaching?
So I've been tutoring the one-on-one since like around 2020 because they really needed it. A lot of kids were scared to go back to school, so they needed full-time, teachers. Plus, the organizations that I work for too, they're amazing and they will give you work. And I'm a big believer in always having a backup plan. So God forbid, you lose your job or something. I have something else that it won't pay all the bills, but it's something,
Right, right.
some kind of work. And I always feel like you have to have a part, even if you don't need it, but have something part time on the side just in case.
Mm.
So I do it by choice. Um, Eventually probably can't do it forever, but even if I got into the corporate world, I probably would still do it just to keep my foot in teaching, to know that I'm helping like at least like a few kids per week. Um, which is what I want to do. Probably like just hold on to that a little bit because I do like it a lot, you
Okay,
know.
that's
Yeah.
cool. That's good. That's good. Now, I just kind of want to go back to like the beginning when you said you wanted to be a teacher because that teacher kind of helped you and took their time to kind of help you with your science project. And then you said your career was you looked at your family or your parents and didn't want to be like them. Today, do your parents look at you and like see the success, or is it something that having to do this all on your own? They see that you did put the hard work, and has there been any like way of saying, "Oh my God, I'm sorry that it wasn't the best influence, but here you are. I'm proud that you were able to, kind of show that even though you didn't have the support, right, per se, that you're still able to pull it off and become very successful in what you do today,
So
or even with your siblings, like your siblings and your
like
family. So
when I had a relationship with my father, he was very proud of the three of us for getting our education and um but never really acknowledged that he wasn't there, didn't have any influence. My mother I have a good relationship with, but she acts like none of that existed.
oh,
She pretends that like none of that happened,
wow,
like that she wasn't, a good mother, and um she really just like blocks it out. Like she's 360, a completely different person, but she does not acknowledge anything. But she's super proud, and she's very fortunate. And I have to say, my family, like my uncles and my aunts, all thought, which is kind of horrible to, and I still hear it. My uncle just passed away, and at the funeral services, some of my family members were like, we're so surprised that you and your sisters made it out the way you did based on the circumstances. All of you could have been like drug addicts, ended up on the street, and look at you. And I'm like, okay, like, thank you. But, I've heard this, which is, nice, but you don't have to keep saying it. Like, I'm done hearing that. But they're super proud because they didn't think that any of us were going to make it out of the hood or away from, what was going on at home. Um, and nobody really believed in us at all. So
yeah,
I do get people that, are proud, that I pushed through. And at my uncle's funeral last month, they were like, you know, you have worked so hard to get away from what your parents did and how they treated you and how you grew up. Like, I don't know how you did it, but I just focused on, like, I don't want to be like them.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I think we all have. I'm sorry about your uncle, but I think we all have those family members, right? That kind of don't know how to stop or don't know how to bite the tongue. Especially, they could have just been like, "Oh, we're so proud of you guys. And
Mm-hmm.
you guys come a long way so far." Versus, "We're so proud of you. We didn't think you guys were going to be here because you guys could
Mm-hmm.
have been this or that." Where if you were proud of me, you would have just let it at the "you're proud of me," not the
Exactly.
giving me the names of a drug addict, or I didn't think you were going to make it or be successful. And
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, it's the fortunate. And sometimes it's I hate to say it, but sometimes it's the old school mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you weren't working at a mechanic shop, or you don't think about the times have changed. You're still kind of stuck in those old days, and don't see that,
Mm-hmm.
especially you being a female, how much harder it is as a woman, right, to
Yeah.
have a career, right? And whether you're an educator or whether you're a nurse or whether you're a professional in the corporate world, as a female, you are battling a lot of those stereotypes where you're supposed to come home just and start cleaning your house or have dinner ready if you're
Mm-hmm.
married, and or have children by a certain age, and and if you're
Yeah.
not married, like, what's wrong? Is it you? And meanwhile, you're just trying
Yeah.
to stay afloat and kind of you know focus on yourself and your mental health and everything else that's going on, because
Mm-hmm.
you have a job to do. So like I said, I commend you for everything you've done. I mean, proud of you, that teacher. And like I said, I've known you for a long time, and you've come a long way, which is awesome. Good for you.
Thank you.
Good for you. But I kind of want to go into a little bit of a little rapid fire, kind of take away from the discussion. My camera's acting weird.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of want to ask some fun questions to kind of just end our episode today. But again, I want to thank you for coming on. I know we've been trying to plan this for almost a whole month.
I know.
We actually made it happen.
I hope I was interesting enough.
You were. This is good. Like I said, you're giving good insight, and you're more than welcome to come back if you ever want to do this again. I know you were curious about what the podcast life is like. I
Yeah.
said, so hopefully this was interesting. Like I said, it's always about coming up with topics, and
Mm-hmm.
like I said, a lot of my topics are more of what I've been through in my life, and kind of hopefully that my message reaches out to someone and who needs to hear
Yeah.
it, and it's to be helpful. But definitely want voices like yourself who have come up from really nothing and working really hard to get to where they're at,
Mm-hmm.
and be influential, especially like I said, any of those little girls who want to become teachers, or even boys,
Yeah.
or people who are looking to find their way. Like I said, we'd love to
You
have you
know,
again on an episode. And
I think an important topic is for how kids, especially, how to deal with drug and alcohol abuse in your home and in your life in general, how to handle that, because it is very hard. Expect kids blame themselves. They don't know what to do. I think that's a very important topic that nobody really talks about.
well, let's plan it. Let's make it happen. I
Yeah.
definitely would. And if you have anyone else that wants to join, and we can make it a panel, I'll be more than happy. Like I said, this podcast is for everyone, right? So
Yeah.
if this is something to kind of motivate you and you want to bring it here, you let me know. Like I said, we can make it happen. That's what I decided to do this, is to really, whether you're a small business that's looking to get out there and get more
Hmm.
people to come to your restaurant or come to see where you're at, if you have a food truck,
Yeah.
or if you're a doctor and you want to spread some, real information that people are not really understanding, whether it's a procedure or illness that you're dealing with, or teachers or corporate world,
Hmm.
investing, helping people learn how to really invest. I have a group of friends that are interested in wanting to kind of put the message out there to kind of help people really put the money where they need to be, instead of, like, because nowadays you
Hmm.
don't know what's happening with. So definitely, like I said, let's, we can definitely make it happen. It's great to have you on. But I really want to ask you some quick questions here, kind of make it light in
Sure.
the mood. So some rapid questions, right? So I'm going to go
Yeah.
like maybe 4 or 5, and then, all right. So favorite food.
Favorite food?
Yeah.
Spaghetti and meatballs.
Spaghetti meatballs, true Italian. Hey, forget about it.
Hmm.
All right. Favorite movie?
Do I have to pick one? Goodfellas.
Yeah, one of many. So if you had a list of what could be not number one, but any of your top movies, yeah. Okay, Goodfellas, great movie, great movie. I think I could watch that on repeat.
Yeah.
Red or white wine?
Red.
Red. Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna go to music. Freestyle or hip hop?
Freestyle.
Okay, of course. And then my last question: Caribbean or Europe?
Europe.
Europe. Okay, cool.
That's
So,
fine.
Kay, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate your time and being candid and being open. But definitely looking forward to having some more conversations. And like I said, you're more than welcome to come on and let's have a discussion. Let's make it happen. Okay.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with you and how you've handled your life and, you know, raising your kids and working and doing everything. Like, it's really impressive. Especially being a good dad while doing it. So, I mean, I see your stuff that you post and how involved you are with your kids. And that's very impressive, especially, you know, coming from somebody who didn't have a dad. And I admire men who really put in that time and effort, and it's admirable.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, I would say, you know, I can't speak for moms because I think moms have a different role. And I think sometimes moms do take the brunt of the beatings, you know, because dad is always fun. Dad is the fun guy. Dad is always, you know, and moms are always the serious and got to be the disciplinary and kind of, you know, so, you know, sometimes it's playing the role of a dad it has its challenges. You see them become babies to toddlers to youth, little kids to young men to men now. And it you know, you're like, damn, you know, being the example is always the hard part, right? Being the man that you want your kids to kind of see you. So, but I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. I definitely appreciate that. Well, mi gente, I want to thank Kay for coming on. I appreciate her time and I appreciate her sharing her life story and her career path. One thing to take from the conversation is that even without support, even without having a cheering squad, you could be successful in life if you put your heart and your mind to it and find the strength. Whenever it gets tough, it's never going to be easy, but it's always going to be rewarding. And with that, please follow, like, and share if you feel like this episode has resonated with you. En La Mesa _pod on Instagram, En La Mesa Podcast on TikTok. You can email me your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions on enlamesapod@gmail.com. And with that, until next time, talk to you soon. Peace.